I'm Leticia Bode. I'm a professor in the Communication, Culture, and Technology program at Georgetown, and I've been at Georgetown since 2012. The project that this grant is funding is related to some research that I've been doing over the past few years, interested in how we can convince more people to correct misinformation when they see it on social media. So we have a lot of research that shows that that's effective. When people see someone else correct misinformation on social media, they in turn become more accurate in their beliefs about that topic. But a lot of people have told us in interviews that they don't want to do it, which is totally reasonable, right? Nobody wants to call out their friends and family on social media. It feels really uncomfortable. So we've been trying to do research to figure out how to encourage people to do this more. And in doing that research, we discovered that it's really hard to do research in a convincing way when you're imitating a social media platform. And there are a couple of platforms that try to make this easier. So like sometimes people call these sandboxes or like research platforms, but almost entirely they imitate what I would describe as kind of first generation social media, things like Facebook. So basically they all look like Facebook. What we are interested in doing is creating a similar platform, but one that looks like Reddit, which is a little bit more of a complicated platform. It's a little bit more versatile platform, and it's a little bit more of an up-and-coming platform. Not to say it's like the TikTok of social media, but it is a little bit younger than Facebook. So we were interested in doing this for our own research, and when we started looking into it, we discovered this doesn't really exist, and it seems like something that the research community is interested in having. Our research is about misinformation and correction, but this is actually something that could be used for all sorts of things. So if you're interested in how people share news or why they share news, how they respond to each other on social media, all of those sorts of things that they should be able to do in this platform. So the grant is supporting us hiring a programmer to develop this platform, and we are really emphasizing we want it to be as accessible as possible. So we want lots of people to use this platform. We don't want you to have to be able to know how to code something or know any kind of programming language. This should be like, research platform for dummies, essentially. And I include myself in that group. And we are spending a lot of time and effort getting the word out to the research communities that might use this. We want to talk to those research communities before we even start building it, so that we know what aspects people want in this sort of a platform, what characteristics do they want it to have, what are some usability issues that we might encounter that we can kind of preempt before it even exists. So it will be an iterative kind of process that we go through with the programmer and the research communities to make sure that we're building something people can actually make use of. And then after it's built, we'll spend a lot of time showing people how to use it and sharing it with the relevant research communities. So that's what the grant is helping us to do. We're really excited. Yes, okay, so we chose to focus on Reddit because, so it's sometimes described as one of the more democratic platforms. One of the relatively unique aspects of Reddit is that it not only lets you favorite things, but it also lets you kind of like upvote things. And that dramatically affects the content that people actually see. So when you open a Reddit thread, you see the top comments are the highest voted comments. If people hate something, it falls to the bottom so that it literally doesn't even get seen by anyone. And so there's this kind of like community voting system that happens within Reddit that is really fascinating and has actually been, from a philosophical standpoint, has been kind of touted as like a more appropriate way to do social media as opposed to things that are entirely based on virality or popularity or different things like that. As a result of this, Reddit has a bit of a reputation for having both better and worse content than other platforms. So depending on what subreddit you're in, what community you're in, they decide their own content moderation tools. They decide the rules that they're going to implement on that community, for that community, and then those rules are kind of self-reinforcing within that community. So you get really toxic, terrible subreddits where people are sharing really bad information, but you also get a lot of really thoughtful discussion that happens between people who are well informed, who are offering sources and expertise to back up their opinions. So that aspect of it was really interesting to us, and it's also really interesting from an experimental standpoint to be able to manipulate those sorts of things, to be able to say, okay, what happens if we have this version versus what happens if we have this version. So that's why it was a really interesting platform for us to work on developing. Yeah, so I think a successful version of this is this platform existing, first of all, and it being not only accessible but actually used by people, which means, first of all, it has to be easy to use. So that's something that we're really prioritizing. Second of all, people have to know about it. So even the existing platforms that I was already talking about, one problem we run into is that people just don't know how to find them. So we're spending a lot of time and effort to make sure that we are actively reaching out to people that might be able to use this and making sure it is very findable for people who are looking for this sort of thing. So success is entirely about whether people end up using it.